Jethro,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
would you like to drive your own car?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I like to drive.
Very well. I have typed out explicit directions. I've even drawn a map showing the exact location of the hotel.
She was the no-nonsense secretary America loved on the Beverly Hillbillies. A picture of poise, wit, and straight-laced charm. He was the fearless, fast-talking king of raw comedy, who made audiences howl on Sanford and Son. On screen, Nancy Kulp and Redd Foxx couldn't have been more different. But behind the scenes, something unexpected unfolded. A connection few knew about until now. What could have drawn these two seemingly opposite stars together? And why did they go to such lengths to keep it hidden? As their paths quietly crossed away from the spotlight, one question lingered for decades. Why the secrecy? The answer may not be what you expect, and it reveals far more than just a romance. Nancy Kulp's unlikely career path. Nancy Kulp's most iconic role came in 1962, when she was cast as Miss Jane Hathaway on the hit CBS sitcom The Beverly Hillbillies. Originally envisioned as a supporting character, Miss Hathaway was the prim and proper secretary to banker Milburn Drysdale. Yet through Kulp's layered performance, the character evolved far beyond her initial purpose. With her upright posture, bookish demeanor, and perfectly measured deadpan delivery, Kulp gave Miss Hathaway a memorable presence that quickly made her a fan favorite. As the show's creators soon realized, Kulp's performance was instrumental to the dynamic of the series. Her comedic timing and subtle emotional beats brought complexity to what could have been a one-note role. One of the most enduring aspects of Miss Hathaway's character was her unspoken infatuation with the clueless and brawny Jethro Bodine, played by Max Baer Jr. Rather than portraying the attraction in a slapstick or exaggerated fashion, Kulp opted for understated comedy, which made it even more humorous and relatable. Her ability to convey romantic longing, frustration, and professionalism all at once gave depth to the show's humor. In a 1967 interview, she described the balancing act. Miss Hathaway may be in love with Jethro, but she'll never let that interfere with her duties at the bank. That's what makes it funny. She's so repressed, she almost explodes. This careful blend of emotional restraint and comedic tension became a hallmark of the character. Kulp's performance was so well received that it earned her an Emmy nomination in 1967 for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, a rare honor for a supporting performance in a sitcom ensemble. By the mid-1960s, Miss Hathaway had become a household name, and Kulp's dignified yet funny portrayal was being praised in TV columns and fan letters alike. The role not only solidified her place in American pop culture, but, more importantly, created other opportunities in television, whereby she became one of the preferred character actresses for quirky, intellectual, or eccentric roles. Such success, moreover, helped challenge stereotypes of women in comedies of that era, showing that smart and sharp-tongued characters could appeal to mainstream audiences. The image of Miss Jane Hathaway lived for decades, even after the Beverly Hillbillies ended in 1971. Reruns kept the show alive well into the modern TV era, with Kulp herself reflecting on her time with the cast. The slapstick and rural absurdity were the antitheses to Kulp's upper-level comedic performance that provided a counterpoint, as she noted. "I always felt Miss Hathaway was the grown-up in the room." For a lot of fans, she was the moral and intellectual center of the series. By portraying Miss Hathaway, Nancy Kulp elevated what could have been a minor character into a cultural icon that dichotomized the comic absurdity and the quieter emotional truths of American sitcom life. But Miss Hathaway was only the beginning. Kulp's true range was just getting started. The rise of Miss Jane Hathaway. While Nancy Kulp will forever be associated with her portrayal of Miss Jane Hathaway, her acting career extended far beyond the Beverly Hillbillies. Kulp was a prolific character actress whose television appearances spanned from the 1950s through the 1980s, showcasing her range across both comedic and dramatic roles. Before her breakout, she had already appeared in notable films such as Shane, 1953, and A Star is Born, 1954, where her unique screen presence stood out even in minor parts. On television, her early work included recurring roles in The Bob Cummings Show and guest appearances on legal dramas like Perry Mason, proving she could deliver dramatic performances with the same nuance as her comedic ones. After the Beverly Hillbillies ended in 1971, Kulp continued to thrive in the television industry, often playing quirky, stern, or intellectual women. She made memorable appearances on popular shows such as Sanford and Son, where she worked alongside Redd Foxx, though their personal connection was not publicly known at the time. She also appeared in episodes of The Love Boat and Murphy Brown, further cementing her versatility. Her role in Murphy Brown, which aired in the late 1980s, showed that even in her later years, she could still captivate audiences with her sharp wit and distinctive voice. Kulp also lent her voice to a number of animated series, thus adding an extra dimension to her career. Her voice was indeed suited for animation, crisp, articulate, and unmistakably Kulp. This allowed Kulp to work within the industry even when on-screen roles began to dry up. Though largely relegated to supporting roles, Kulp always could make those characters shine distinctively. She once remarked, "There are no small roles, only small actors. I always tried to give each part its due, no matter the size." Her devotion to acting certainly turned many days of supporting roles into unforgettable moments. Her influence on television is even more striking given the era in which she chose to ply her craft. It was the time when women were pigeonholed into one-dimensional types, yet Kulp transcended typecasting by accentuating her uniqueness. Her tall stature, intelligence, and precise diction made that presence all the more arresting. Long before that kind of archetype was in vogue on TV, Kulp became the face of the smart, single, and working woman. Kulp's achievements stand as a tribute to the relevance and might of character actors, those whose names rarely find the top of the credits, but whose performance sets the mood and spirit of the story being told. A versatile TV presence. Although Nancy Kulp is best remembered for her role as Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, her career as a television actress spanned more than 3 decades and included a wide range of performances. Beginning in the early 1950s, Kulp carved out a niche as a dependable and distinctive character actress, often portraying eccentric, intellectual, or prim figures who brought depth and humor to every scene. Early in her career, she appeared in dramatic programs like Perry Mason, showcasing her ability to handle serious roles with the same poise she brought to comedy. Her unusual combination of height, sharp features, and articulate voice made her an immediate standout among television's supporting cast. Kulp's career remained steady after the Beverly Hillbillies ended in 1971. She transitioned smoothly into other popular TV shows, including guest spots on Sanford and Son, where she shared the screen with Redd Foxx, and The Love Boat, a favorite for classic television stars, making cameo appearances. Her appearance on Murphy Brown in the 1980s was another example of her enduring presence on television. Each role reinforced her identity as a versatile performer, capable of adapting to different formats, tones, and periods in TV history. According to industry peers, Kulp brought a theatrical intelligence to every role, a blend of precision, timing, and a subtle comedic edge. In addition to her live-action roles, Kulp's opportunities began to cascade into animated television shows, which in turn formed an additional point of expansion in her career. These roles were often uncredited or swallowed up by her fame from the screen. However, they serve to highlight Kulp's willingness to change with the medium and to try new forms. Her clarity and expressiveness have been cited as her greatest strengths. She made even the smallest bits come alive. "I was never the star," once said Kulp, "but I always tried to be the soul of whatever scene I was in." Nancy Kulp personified the success of a character actress against the paradigm of a show. Thus, these supporting roles contribute towards creating an identity. In an industry often held hostage by the leading stars, she proved that memorable performances can spring from the sidelines, and that intelligence, timing, and authenticity create great impact. Her work altered the course for the female character actor on television, offering a new tomorrow for the next generations that do not fit standard molds, but provide an extraordinary voice to the screen. A private marriage and a public breakthrough. Before Nancy Kulp became a household name through her role as Miss Jane Hathaway, she experienced a chapter of her life that remained largely private: her marriage. On April 1, 1951, Kulp married Charles Malcolm Dacus in Dade County, Florida, during the early years of her transition into the entertainment industry. At the time, she was still building her career and had not yet gained national attention. Very little is publicly known about the nature of their relationship, and Kulp rarely spoke about her marriage in interviews. Her choice to keep this part of her life out of the spotlight reflected her overall preference for privacy. As she once noted, "My work speaks louder than my personal life ever could." The marriage lasted for about a decade, ending in divorce in 1961. This quiet dissolution coincided almost precisely with a major turning point in Kulp's career. Just 1 year after the divorce, in 1962, she landed her defining role as Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies. The timing suggests that as her personal life underwent significant change, her professional life was ascending rapidly. While many actresses of the era were expected to present a polished personal image that included a traditional marriage, Kulp instead moved forward independently, focusing entirely on her burgeoning television career. Kulp had her most productive years professionally in her post-divorce life. She was never remarried afterward, and during interviews of that time, she would seldom talk about her personal life. Kulp's choice to live the rest of her life as a single woman directly conflicted with the expectations for women in the 1960s, particularly if they were in the public eye. Keeping her private affairs far from the public gaze allowed Kulp to control her public persona and let her acting be her legacy. Friends and colleagues always described her as devoted, ambitious, and fiercely introverted, her imperatives that propelled her success while guarding her private life. While little is known about the actual circumstances of her marriage, Nancy Kulp experienced her public breakthrough during a period of her own evolution. By the standards of Hollywood, she came to fame not through scandal or publicity, but through sheer talent and perseverance. Within an industry that has become accustomed to using its practitioners' private lives as marketing tools, Kulp's exceptional ability to have clearly delineated, for herself and for the rest of the world, her private and public domains is indeed commendable. With the rising fame of the Beverly Hillbillies, Kulp stepped away quietly from a traditional domestic life into a full embrace of her identity as one of television's most distinctive and respected character actresses. A new stage. After retiring from a successful television career, Nancy Kulp entered a new chapter of her life, defined by civic engagement, education, and advocacy. In the early 1980s, she made headlines by running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 9th District as a Democrat. Her campaign centered on social justice, environmental protection, and educational reform, causes that reflected her personal convictions and long-standing sense of civic responsibility. "I have always believed in public service," Kulp said during her campaign. Her military background as a Navy Reserve officer during World War II lent credibility to her candidacy and underscored her commitment to serving the public beyond the entertainment industry. Despite her strong platform and clear dedication, Kulp's political bid was met with significant resistance. The district leaned heavily Republican, and her campaign faced an unexpected blow when her former Beverly Hillbillies co-star Buddy Ebsen publicly endorsed her opponent. Ebsen's involvement, which included a radio ad labeling her as too liberal, shocked many fans and cast a shadow over what had been perceived as a close-knit cast. Ultimately, Kulp lost the election, but she remained proud of her efforts. She later reflected, "It was worth every moment. Running for office was one of the hardest things I ever did, but also one of the most fulfilling." After the political campaign, Kulp moved the focus of her activities into education. She then joined the faculty of Juniata College in Pennsylvania, where she taught acting and drama. Authenticity, discipline, and a wealth of real-world experience have made her admired by her students. Kulp approached teaching with the same passion she brought to acting. She often emphasized story, character, and professionalism. Former students called her warm, insightful, and dependent on nurturing new talent. "The way she taught us was not just how to act, how to think like an actor," a student recalled, marking her influence as a mentor. When not in the limelight, Nancy Kulp pursued service in large public and cultural causes. Whether campaigning for change or mentoring aspiring actors, she was always putting her platform and expertise to the cause of encouraging other people. All politics and academics might have contributed to shaping lives in a different but still equally meaningful fashion than what her television roles could offer. Kulp's post-Hollywood life represents success not in the shallow terms of celebrity, but rather in finding purposes, making impacts, and staying true to your values. The legacy of Kulp extended far beyond the screen, grounded instead in service, education, and quiet strength of conviction. Just as her public journey took on new meaning, a private chapter from years earlier was quietly rewriting itself behind the scenes. Kulp's relationship with Redd Foxx. One of the most surprising chapters in Nancy Kulp's life was her long-rumored, little-known relationship with comedian Redd Foxx. Known for playing the refined, intelligent Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, Kulp seemed to share little in common with Foxx, the streetwise, sharp-tongued star of Sanford and Son. Yet, behind the scenes of Hollywood's golden era, the two developed a private and deeply intellectual bond that was both unexpected and profound. According to multiple insider accounts, their connection began in the late 1960s at a charity event in Los Angeles, at a time when both were at the height of their television fame. Despite coming from vastly different worlds, Kulp, with her journalism background and naval service, and Foxx, with his raw comedic roots in the Chitlin circuit, the pair connected on shared values and mutual respect. They were both avid readers, passionate about civil rights, and known for their sharp intellect. According to sources, the two would engage in long, late-night conversations filled with debate, humor, and deep discussion. They were opposites on the outside, one contemporary recalled, but alike where it mattered. Their chemistry was never played out on screen, but those close to them described a quiet companionship that went far beyond surface attraction. Keeps, as by public observation, tied a secret relationship in the lives of both, because this is how the social atmosphere spoke for them, yet more loudly in the 1960s and 70s. Their bond, most especially for two public figures who enjoy such diverse images, didn't take long before it started facing some heat. Kulp and Foxx were and remained very private people. Kulp detoured personal questions in interviews most of the time, never openly discussing her sexuality. On the other hand, Foxx was already tearing multiple marriages apart with a very stormy public character. For either, keeping the relationship out of the limelight may have been less about secrecy than about protection. According to one person who knew Foxx, it wasn't scandal they feared, it was the loss of something genuine. While it's unclear how long the relationship lasted, or whether it was romantic, platonic, or something in between, what is certain is the depth of their connection. Kulp admired Foxx's unapologetic approach to social commentary and his courage to challenge norms, while Foxx appreciated her wit, discipline, and strength of character. Their bond, though hidden from the public eye, offered each a rare refuge in a world that constantly sought to define them. After both passed away in 1991, stories began to emerge that shed light on their private friendship, painting a picture of two artists who found comfort and respect in one another. Their story stands as a reminder that some of the most powerful relationships in Hollywood occur not under the spotlight, but far from it, nurtured in quiet, mutual understanding. Beverly Hills meets the Chitlin Circuit. Nancy Kulp and Redd Foxx were, at first glance, an unlikely pair. Kulp, a classically educated actress with a background in journalism and naval service, was best known for her portrayal of the refined and buttoned-up Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies. Her acting style leaned on subtlety, wit, and understated physical comedy, perfectly suited for the more conservative, family-friendly sitcoms of the 1960s. In contrast, Redd Foxx was a product of the gritty and electrifying world of the Chitlin Circuit, where he built a name as a raw, boundary-pushing comedian. Known as the king of the party records, Foxx's rise to fame came from raunchy stand-up performances and unfiltered social commentary that would later fuel his success on Sanford and Son in the 1970s. Two personalities whose origins were far apart, Kulp and Foxx, possessed an unconventional courage and thoughtfulness. They were ardent readers, engaged politically, and committed to civil liberties. While Kulp was unassumingly working for social issues, her counterpoint, Foxx, was bold and humorous. Their contrasting styles of doing things only became pillars of their respect for each other. As a colleague put it, Redd loved people who didn't pretend, and Nancy was as real as they came. Their friendship was not a showbiz kind of friendship, but the conversation and admiration that transcended racial, cultural, and stylistic barriers. On the one hand, Kulp's training as a naval officer and her career in academia lent her a certain discipline and interiority. Foxx's comedy grew from the crucible of the nightclub and an open rebellion against society. Each one faced obstructions in their careers. Expectations were fought in very different ways. Kulp stood as one tough lady against men. Foxx battled as a black comedian, trying to make it in the television entertainment industry that currently forgives very few new faces. Somewhere in this almost mystical understanding of their plights lay the key to their crossing that bridge dividing what for many would have looked like two hostile worlds. Friends know that they could sit for hours talking about literature, philosophy, and the absurdity of Hollywood. At a party, they could sit in a corner and talk like the rest of the room didn't exist, recalls one friend. Their relationship ought to be said to involve some romantic undertones. However, it must have been really platonic. It was really a rare meeting of minds from two very different cultural spaces, the Beverly Hillbillies' sanitized suburbia and the unapologetic edge of the Chitlin Circuit. Their friendship crystallizes out of this shared desire for mutual understanding beyond the roles they played on TV. Though this was never told publicly in their lifetime, the depth of their bond showed how deep character and intellect can transcend mere looks and public persona. Nancy Kulp and Redd Foxx proved that even the most unlikely friendships can become the strongest souls, formed not by background or fame, but by common truth and mutual respect. Kulp's philanthropic legacy. In the final chapter of her life, Nancy Kulp found a new kind of fulfillment in Palm Springs, California, a desert city known for its beauty, artistic community, and strong civic spirit. After retiring from acting, Kulp chose to live away from the glare of Hollywood, settling into a quieter but no less meaningful existence. She immersed herself in charitable causes and community engagement driven by a lifelong passion for service. Palm Springs provided the perfect setting for this phase of her life. Peaceful, culturally rich, and home to many like-minded artists and activists. As one local volunteer noted, Nancy didn't just retire, she re-engaged in a different way. One of Kulp's most passionate causes was animal welfare. She worked closely with the Humane Society of the Desert, dedicating time and resources to rescuing, rehabilitating, and rehoming abused or abandoned animals. Her love for animals was well known, and she frequently used her public platform to promote responsible pet ownership and support for animal shelters. Whether it was fundraising, volunteering at events, or simply caring for animals in need, Kulp made animal rights a central focus of her later years. She never turned away an animal in trouble, a fellow volunteer recalled. Her compassion was real and constant. In her later years, Kulp stayed in the public eye as an active member of the Desert Theater League, an organization that fosters local stage productions and theatrical talent from the surrounding desert community. She had not performed regularly but continued to tutor aspiring actors, attended local productions, and now and then contributed her voice and experience to local productions. The local theater felt Kulp's involvement in their projects deeply. They cherished her not for her fame, but for her generosity and humility. One younger performer described the experience in this way. Having Nancy Kulp in the audience was more encouraging than a standing ovation. She made you want to do better. Besides her work on behalf of animals and the arts, Kulp was involved with disability rights, particularly through her support of United Cerebral Palsy. She took part in campaigns to raise awareness, fundraising events, and direct support of people and families affected by developmental disabilities. Her approaches to service were very hands-on, whether advocating for humane treatment of animals or fighting for inclusion on behalf of people with disabilities. These moments etched permanence in the hearts and minds of her beholders. Nancy Kulp's later years in Palm Springs were not a retirement, but rather a renaissance. She grounded her calling in purpose and continued reaching out in service with the same dignity and soul that had characterized her across the years to help others. Kulp's final battle. In the final years of her life, Nancy Kulp faced one of her most difficult battles, not on stage or in politics, but against cancer. A longtime cigarette smoker, like many of her generation, Kulp had picked up the habit at a time when smoking was not only socially accepted, but often glamorized. Unfortunately, the decades-long use of tobacco took a serious toll on her health. By the late 1980s, the consequences became unavoidable. In 1990, she was diagnosed with cancer, a diagnosis that would mark the beginning of a painful final chapter. While the specific type of cancer was never publicly disclosed, it was widely believed that smoking had contributed to its development. Kulp approached her illness with the same quiet resilience that characterized much of her life. Rather than seeking public sympathy, she kept her condition mostly private and focused on undergoing treatment. She bravely began chemotherapy in hopes of halting the disease's progression. The treatment came with the typical harsh side effects: nausea, fatigue, hair loss, but Kulp maintained her composure and dignity throughout. Friends later recalled that she never sought pity. Nancy faced cancer the way she lived, calm, composed, and on her own terms, one close acquaintance noted. In defiance of her will, cancer by early 1991 metastasized, and treatment was futile. Kulp's health deteriorated very quickly, and she spent her last days in Palm Desert, California, where she had devoted most of her retirement to charitable work. She died on February 3, 1991, at age 69. Her death represented the loss of a woman whose legacy stretched far beyond her television roles, a trailblazing actress, teacher, veteran, and advocate who had touched the lives of many through her work and spirit. After her death, Kulp's remains were returned to Pennsylvania, where she was interred at Westminster Presbyterian Cemetery in Mifflintown. The serene surroundings mirrored the silent grace that accompanied her final days. While her battle with cancer was carried out in private, it stood as a testimony to her strength and independence. Nancy Kulp's story is a poignant reminder of the long-term health effects of using tobacco. But it is also a reminder of all the quiet fortitude she employed in meeting life's greatest challenge. In both her life and death, she had remained true to herself, unpretentious, introspective, and steadfast. But even as her health declined, Nancy Kulp found a powerful way to leave her mark beyond the screen. Final days and lasting legacy. Nancy Kulp spent her final years in Palm Desert, California, a serene desert city that offered her both peace and purpose in retirement. While her time in Hollywood had brought her national fame, Kulp chose a quieter existence in her later life, one focused on philanthropy, education, and community engagement. In Palm Desert, she dedicated herself to causes that mattered deeply to her, such as animal welfare, disability advocacy, and the performing arts. Her work with the Humane Society of the Desert and United Cerebral Palsy reflected her ongoing commitment to compassion and service. She may have left the stage, but she never stopped showing up for others. Even as she stepped away from the screen, she remained a respected and active figure in the local community. Even in the face of the cancer that started to grow in her body in 1990, Kulp remained calm and collected with a sense of purpose through her ordeal. She supported charities, worked with those around her, and made sure to never let the disease put its stamp upon her days. The untimely demise she suffered on February 3, 1991, at the age of 69, was an aching loss to the public, but a crushing blow to her close associates, friends, and colleagues. She was buried in the Westminster Presbyterian Cemetery in Mifflintown, Pennsylvania, a site that symbolically brought her life full circle to the little town where she grew up. It was a worthy place for a woman who had her feet firmly planted on the ground despite her fame. Nancy Kulp's legacy endures most immediately through her unforgettable portrayal of Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies, but more importantly, through her contributions to American television and culture. A woman who has worked in many careers: journalism, naval officer, actress, politician, and educator. She seems anything but easily categorized. Each of her roles was enriched by her intelligence, wit, and humanity, and she went on to mentor many students and young performers. Her acting earned her an Emmy nomination and helped redefine the ability of the sitcom medium for secondary characters to become beloved cultural icons. Kulp's life story is also one of exceptional integrity, diversity, and grit, worthy of sustenance and inspiration itself. From her work in public service, her barrier-busting friendship with Redd Foxx, to her positioning in the annals of television history, Kulp left a lasting mark. As one co-worker described, the kind of woman who didn't just play roles, she lived them with dignity. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood stories. Want more? Click the next video on your screen to uncover another surprising chapter from TV history.